My husband caught me in the act young AP. He shared everything on the group chat and left me.
Hello, guys. I've made a very big mistake. I don't even know where the mistakes began or when I started to become so stupid and lustful. I've destroyed my once happy marriage because of my lustful desires. I don't even know how I got here. Everything right now is on the verge of being lost. Everything happened so fast it was like a flash, and I'm so ashamed of myself right now. I've done something so despicable. I can't even look myself in the mirror right now, and I don't think I will ever be able to forgive myself for having an affair and cheating on my husband. I blame myself for everything. I got so carried away by my lust that I couldn't even control myself. I'm so confused and lost, but I hope by posting here someone might learn something. I have ruined my marriage with my own hands, all just because of some fun with a younger person. My kids won't even talk or look at me, and the same with every other member of my family. My husband doesn't want me anymore and is saying he wants a divorce. I know you must be wondering about what happened, so first my backstory. My name is Fiona, and I am a 45-year-old woman. My husband, Victor, is a 47-year-old man. We have been married for 25 years, and we live in Alabama in the United States of America. We have 3 kids, Ariel and Arthur, who are twins and are 23 years old, and Skylar, who is male and 19 years old. My husband and I were high school sweethearts and got married a few years after we were both done with high school. My husband was the star quarterback back then in school, LOL, and I was the nerd that was constantly getting bullied. That all stopped when he started protecting, and throughout my last years in high school, I never got bullied again. High school was rough. I was the geek, always a target for bullies. Victor was the big shot quarterback everyone loved. It honestly felt like he belonged to a different universe. Then, out of the blue one day, lol, we bumped into each other in the hallway, and things took a surprising turn. Victor, against all odds, started hanging out with me. It felt like something out of a teen movie, LOL. He saw beyond the labels and actually liked me for me. As we spent time together, he became my shield, standing up to the bullies who had been making my life a misery. With Victor around, the bullying stopped. His presence was like a force that made those jerks back off. I couldn't believe the star quarterback was choosing to be with me, just a regular girl trying to get by. Victor not only had my back, but showed me a world where kindness mattered more than cruelty. In his company, I found an unexpected ally and friend, and then a husband, LOL. I remember our first date. I was all jittery, waiting for Victor to show up for our first high school date. I was 16 and he was soon to be 18 and done with high school. The vibe was like a mix of excitement and nerves. When he finally came, he had this cute, shy smile that just made me feel good. We kicked off our date with a chill walk in the park, where we chatted and shared our embarrassing and hilarious secrets. Victor genuinely cared about what I had to say. He made me feel important. We sat on a bench, snacking on popcorn, and watched the sunset. It felt like the start of something real special. That first high school date turned into a memory I'll never forget. On our second high school date, Victor surprised me with this cool 2-seater bike, a fun ride that had us pedaling around town, laughing like crazy people. After our biking adventure, Victor suggested a picnic. We found a nice spot in the park, laid out a blanket, and chowed down on homemade sandwiches and snacks. It was just us, enjoying good food and the simple pleasure of being carefree teenagers. Sitting there munching away, I couldn't help but appreciate how thoughtful Victor was. Our second date was all about having a good time together, creating another awesome memory in our high school days. On our third high school date, Victor took me to this awesome secret spot of his, a place he really loved. We wandered off into quiet trails, away from all the school, hustle, bustle, and chaos, until we stumbled upon his little hideaway. Surrounded by nature, it felt like our own peaceful escape. Victor shared why this spot meant so much to him, making it seem like our personal little haven. Chilling in his favorite hideout, I could see how much Victor trusted me, opening up about his special place. In our early 20s, with Victor at 22 and me at 20, we decided to get married. In fact, we were knee-deep in planning our marriage. College costs were like a constant weight on our wallets. Victor was grinding through medical studies as he wanted to become a medical surgeon, and I was chasing an art degree to fuel my passion. Dreams were big, but money was tight. We'd sit down, crunching numbers and trying to figure out how to have a wedding without going broke. Nights were spent talking about our future, balancing our studies with the reality of becoming a married couple. It wasn't easy on our wallets, but our youthful hope and shared determination turned those challenges into building blocks. On our big day, Victor and I found ourselves in this cute little church, surrounded by familiar faces of close friends and family. The vibe was a mix of excitement and nerves, LOL, making it clear that what we were doing was a pretty big deal. Walking down the aisle, emotions hit me like a truck. The simple setting of the church didn't take away from the fact that this moment was huge. It just made everything feel real and genuine. The church, with its modest decorations, perfectly matched the essence of our love, straightforward but deep. With our favorite people around, you could feel the joy and support in the air. Yeah, nerves were there too, like a bunch of butterflies having a party in my stomach. Totally normal given the promises we were about to make. Standing up there with Victor, looking into his eyes, I felt at ease. Our vows were simple, but you could tell they came from the heart, a testament to the love that had grown from high school days to this life-changing moment. The party afterward was a blast. Lots of toasts, laughter, and good times with the folks who've been with us through it all. Our wedding day might not have been some grand affair, but it was rich in real emotions. Years later, and we were at such good places, we graduated, and Victor is now a very successful medical surgeon. Too successful, I'd say. He always has to be on call and available regardless of the day and time. That has been affecting our relationship as he doesn't even have time for me anymore. As for me, even though I got my art degree, I never really used it, as I chose to be a stay-at-home mom, SAHM. I chose to stay home and take care of the kids while Victor went out and worked. Besides, after Victor's dad died, he left Victor a sizable inheritance, so we weren't struggling at all. Financially, we were in a very good place. Victor had everything set up. In case he did retire, so we wouldn't go broke or anything, he didn't even need to work, but he still kept working, because the hospital needed him and he loved his job. He also made sure a trust fund and college fund was set up for all our kids, so all in all, we're in a very good place. Emotionally, though, it had been a while since Victor and I had a time to ourselves or were even intimate. Our marriage life was suffering as he didn't have any time for me. I guess I should have just talked to him, but I was so desperate for any atom of affection that I went ahead and cheated. I met Charles at the grocery store. Yes, a grocery store. I was done shopping for provisions and was on my way to checkout when I bumped into him, LOL, like the way I had bumped into my husband back then in high school. Charles was young. He looked like he was only a few years older than my eldest kids, Ariel and Arthur, and he was very handsome. He apologized to me and offered to help me carry my stuff to checkout and then to my car, but I refused. Again, he offered to help pay for my stuff, but I refused since he hadn't caused me or the stuff I bought any harm by bumping into him. I then checked out and left, but he kept following me. He told me his name was Charles, and I introduced myself. It was obvious he was trying to flirt with me, so I told him my age and that I was way older than him. He told me that he didn't mind as I was beautiful. Now I know that I am beautiful, and I get complimented a lot about it. Also, people sometimes tell me that I look a lot younger than I actually am, which is understandable since I take good care of my skin and work out to keep in shape. But just hearing it from someone as young as Charles made me feel happy. Also, because of the emotional distance between me and my husband as a result of his work, I was feeling emotionally staffed for attention. I smiled and thanked him, but still I told him I was married. Charles told me that he didn't mind as he just wanted to be friends. Inwardly, I knew that was a lie, and I should have just left then and there, but I honestly don't know what stupid and idiotic thought and mistake that made me stay and give Charles my number. Before I even got home, he had already started texting me. Soon, Charles and I were texting regularly. I guess I did it because I was feeling so lonely. The kids weren't around as Ariel and Arthur were in college. Skylar was also in college as he graduated from high school early. Did I mention that the kids were big fans of their dad? They were all pursuing the medical field in college. They had taken their dad's brains LL and didn't take my creative side. Ariel was studying to become a nurse, while Arthur and Skylar were both studying to become medical surgeons. As a result of that, I was left alone at the house a lot, and that made me really lonely. Charles and I were texting a lot, and we were also flirting. I guess I should have felt guilty then, but I didn't because I felt it was harmless flirting, and what Victor didn't know would never hurt him. Charles and I did not have a lot in common. He was not an art person, but was more of a music person. Unlike me, he also did not like the kind of movies I liked, but that just drew us closer. I also found out Charles was only 24 years old, only a year older than Ariel and Arthur. I felt guilty, but still stupidly I carried on. Charles was hell-bent on making me see things his way, lol. He said that if I watched some of the movies that he liked, I would like them too. He was also empathetic and would listen to me rant and talk endlessly. Now that I think about it, Charles was a walking red flag, but I was so starved for attention that I didn't even care to look further at the kind of person he was. Charles put on a facade. At first he made me trust him, but then when trouble came, he abandoned me. Charles was charismatic, and so it was easy for him to pretend that he cared about me. Soon I was smiling and laughing more to the extent that my friends, and even my kids and Victor noticed. But whenever they asked, I lied and told them I just wanted to appreciate life more. No. Charles had a way of making you feel like you were the most important person in the world to him. He honestly knew how to get under a person's skin and into their heart. Soon I was inviting Charles to the house when Victor was away to watch movies with me, and then we would try to convince each other that our movie taste was superior to the others. I knew that what I was doing was wrong, but I honestly paid no mind to it. I inwardly tried convincing myself a lot of the time that I was doing nothing with Charles, even though I knew that it would eventually lead to something. On one faithful day, Charles came over while Victor was away. Victor had previously told me that he wouldn't be coming back that night, so Charles and I had both decided that we would have a movie marathon all night long, and then Charles would leave really early in the morning before Victor would be back. Charles came over, and soon we were on Netflix watching a few movies. I honestly do not know how it happened, and I cannot even explain how it happened. It all happened quickly and in a flash, but soon Charles kissed me and I responded, and we got intimate. It was only until the next day. It was around 3 o'clock in the morning, and Victor wasn't back, but I knew he would be back by 7 or 8. I finally realized what I had done, and I hurriedly kicked Charles out before Victor would come back. I was horrified by the fact that I had cheated on my husband. What would Victor say? What would Victor do? All those questions kept running around in my mind. I felt so guilty, but I also felt horrified because I had enjoyed it. I was so emotionally starved that I had cheated on my husband with a young boy that was only a year older than my twins. And when my husband came back from the hospital, I felt so guilty, but I couldn't tell him because I knew he would divorce me and leave me. I didn't want that. I love my husband, and I wanted to spend the rest of my life with him. My husband was kind, humble, and helpful, but he did not like cheating at all. My husband was the kind of person that believed in communication. He believes if you have any issues, talk it out with your partner instead of going out and cheating. I pretended as if everything was fine, and as if I didn't just cheat on my husband a few hours ago. We chatted and talked, and then Victor went to rest because he had been working all night. I blocked Charles after sending him a quick message to never message me again, and all was well for a few days. After I had blocked Charles, he called me for a few times with some numbers before finally letting me be. I was starting to feel lonely, and I realized that Charles was the only person that made me not feel bored. He entertained me. I am also ashamed to admit it, but I missed the intimacy. So after wrestling with my inner mind for a few days, I finally unblocked Charles. He soon sent me a quick text, and soon we were talking again. Charles convinced me that what Victor didn't know wouldn't kill him, and as long as he never found out about the affair, we would be safe. Charles assured me that it would be easy to hide the affair because Victor worked a lot and was usually working on weekends. And also my kids were in college, so it was just me in the house. Charles convinced me that I wasn't doing much wrong by cheating on Victor because it was Victor's fault for neglecting me. Like a person without a mind of their own, I fell for Charles's words, and soon Charles and I were having our secret affair in the house. Whenever Victor was away at the hospital for weekends, Charles would come over and spend a lot of time. We would also be intimate a lot. Charles also convinced me to start giving him money. Victor and I had a joint account, even though Victor was the one earning all the money. And also because we were well off, I started giving Charles money for stuff, like gas, groceries, clothes, and other stuff. I became so engrossed in the affair and so involved that I think I lost myself. I guess Victor must have started to suspect because he started coming home randomly a lot of times. That should have been a wake-up call for me, but I still ignored it at this point. I was so deep in with Charles that I just couldn't stop. One day, I and Charles were in the middle of being intimate. When I heard Victor's car pull up to the driveway, I was so shocked because he wasn't supposed to be home by this time. I immediately dragged Charles off me and hurriedly got dressed and arranged the bed. I had to hide Charles in one of our kids' rooms since our kids had gone off to college. Their rooms were mostly unused nowadays. It still had all their stuff from childhood, though, and they usually stayed in the rooms whenever they came to visit, so I always kept it clean. Thankfully, Victor didn't even think to check the kids' room, and I guess he didn't want me to know he was suspecting me, so he acted Norma and stayed home all throughout the day. Charles couldn't leave and had to spend the night in the kids' room. The next day, however, when Victor had left to go to work, Charles then came out. Since he had spent the night there, he hadn't really eaten much, so I let him bathe and eat breakfast with me. Then we started getting intimate. That was where I made such a huge mistake, you see. I should have just sent Charles home after having breakfast with him instead of getting intimate with him again. I guess Victor must have really suspected me because he came right back to the house and caught me and Charles right in the act of getting intimate. Have you ever seen your life flash right before your eyes? That is what happened to me the moment Victor dashed into our matrimonial bed and caught me and Charles together intimate. I immediately, on an impulse, hurriedly covered myself with the bedsheets and then started crying. Charles' clothes were on the floor, so Victor grabbed them and refused to give them to him, and then kicked Charles out naked. I just watched everything unfold, realizing that I had ruined my life. Victor didn't even scream at me, and I guess that was what horrified me the most. I wanted him to have a reaction, to say anything to me, to scream at me, to ask me how could I. I just wanted him to have a reaction, but he did not. He threw Charles' clothes in the trash and then left the house, even though I kept calling him to come back to let me explain. I cried for hours on end. What had I done? I had ruined my life, and there was no going back from here. My life was gone. My marriage that I have struggled so hard to build was gone. I knew that there was no way Victor would forgive me. I had scarred him for life. Victor was going to leave me, and I knew that I would go down. I had no source of income on my own, no assets. Suddenly, I regretted the decision I made to be a stay-at-home wife all those years. Victor didn't even waste time in broadcasting what I had done. I was even more horrified by the way he had told everyone about my betrayal and cheating. I got a notification on my phone that Victor had added me to a group chat on WhatsApp with my family, our friends, and his family. It was as if I had a premonition of what he was about to do. I tried calling him hurriedly, but he refused to pick up. Then he posted screenshot of my messages with Charles, and then did a voice note about how he had come into the house and caught me and Charles in the act. My phone started buzzing. Everyone was blowing up my phone. I was getting text messages about how I could have done something so horrible and about how I had ruined my marriage. My parents were so disappointed, my friends were disappointed and shocked, and Victor's family was enraged. I guess Victor didn't want our kids to find out by someone else telling them, so he called them and told them. I only know that because soon after my kids were calling me. At first, I was too scared to pick, but I knew my kids. If I didn't pick, they would come over to the house, and facing them in person would be even more horrifying than talking to them on the phone. So I picked up the phone. My kids were so shocked, they were so disappointed in me. I tried to give them an excuse. I tried to tell them about how I was so lonely, and that's why I did it, but they weren't hearing it. They told me why I haven't talked to them. They told me that Victor had been planning to retire soon, and that he would have all the time in the world. Safe to say I had ruined my life. My kids didn't want to talk to me anymore. My family, and even Victor's family, were enraged at what I had done, as they thought Victor and I were happy together. I tried calling Victor multiple times, but he wouldn't pick up, so I sent him a lot of texts, explaining why I did it, apologizing, and telling him I had felt so lonely, but Victor would hear none of it. He told me he knew how lonely I was, and that he had been planning to retire. But he hadn't told me because he had wanted it to be a little surprise. I couldn't believe my ears. He also told me that he had been suspecting that I had been cheating on him, and that was why he started coming home randomly. He told me he gave me only a few days to pack my stuff and leave his house. and that he would come to give me divorce papers to sign. I had to pack up and go to my parents' house because even though they were very angry at me, they would never abandon me in my time of need. As for Charles, he blocked me, and I cannot even reach him. It is as if he never existed in the first place. I know what I did was wrong, and I am regretting it. I will continue to regret it for the rest of my life. But I am hoping that by posting here, someone might see this and learn a lesson from my mistake. Thank you all for listening. I got baited by my own husband, and now he is mad and angry just because I ended up doing exactly what he told me to do. Whatever happened to never biting more than you can chew? He thought I would chicken out so he could taunt me for as long as he wanted, but I refused, and now he is mad at me. He is trying to make life difficult for me, but it's not my fault that he decided to bring up a Daru, and now he's the one that chickened out. I know that he's trying to dump me, and that's why I'm here on Reddit to ask you all if what I did was wrong. He has visited almost every single family member of mine to complain about me. Not once in any of his complaints did he state or agree that he had anything to do with my decision. He's just trying to play dumb and act like he didn't bait me into doing what I did. My name is Lupita, and I'm a 28-year-old African-American living in New Jersey. I work at a restaurant as a chef and baker. Unfortunately, I can't mention the name of the restaurant I work at. I'm married to a 32-year-old restaurant owner called Frederick. My husband is the owner of the restaurant I work at. I know it's a very weird setup, but unfortunately, I find myself in such a situation. I actually met Frederick at his restaurant, and I didn't even know he owned the restaurant. In case some people will try to make it seem like I married Frederick because he's a restaurant owner, let me just put it out there that I never had any of those intentions. I actually come from a well-to-do family, and my parents provided me with more than enough. I married out of love. It was never about the money for me. I just finished my internship before I met Frederick at the restaurant. I was literally just stopping by for lunch with my friends, and then he walked in. He had other workers, but that day, he casually strolled in and just walked up to the counter. My friends noticed I liked him immediately, and I didn't even try to hide it. By that time, I didn't even know he was the owner. I thought he was a regular customer. It was only a few days later, after that restaurant suddenly became my favorite restaurant because of him. Lal and I visited it almost every day that I found out he owned it. We became friends and hit it off pretty quickly. That is just the story of how we met. But now I guess we're about to become worst enemies, lol. We got married 2 years after dating, and it was a very weird kind of wedding. If you ask me why, I'll just tell you that it was because my family and his family are not really the highest fans of each other. I don't even need to pretend, so I'll get straight to the point. I don't like his mother at all. That woman just picks at me every chance she gets, so I don't like her. She also seems to dislike me just as much as I dislike her, but we pretend to like each other at family functions when it's completely necessary. My father doesn't really like Frederick because, according to him, owning a restaurant is not a real job as far as you solely depend on your customers' turnout, which can change any time. But even though we have a rough family relationship, we loved each other too much to let our family get in the way, so that's how we ended up married. I've been married to Frederick for 3 years now, but we don't have a child together yet. If you ask me why, I'll just tell you it's because I'm not really ready to have children yet. It's my body and it's my choice. Frederick never had a problem with that, and he's been very supportive in that regard. I started working at his restaurant just 6 months after we got married. I used to work with my dad before, but I decided to work with Frederick instead because I knew that he was not comfortable with me being on my dad's payroll when the both of them are not really friends. I like working with my husband, and it started off as a weird experience, but I was able to get used to it. Now, I think I'm going to be jobless in the next few weeks because I'm very certain that my husband and I are going to break up. Or, let me just put it this way, I'm very sure that Frederick is going to dump me. You all have waited enough, so let me tell you what's going on and how we got to this place we are currently at. Even though all through the beginning of this write-up, I've sounded like a stuck-up lady, I'm not like that at all. It's all talk and no action because I'm actually a very conservative person. I'm not wild and I don't explore things every day. I'm just very opinionated, and I talk about my opinions, but I never really speak about it. My husband knows I'm a talkative, and I am very active at home, but not in the public space. I used to be that girl that likes to explore before, but I grew out of it before I got married. My conservative nature and nonchalantness has grown bigger over the past few years, and my husband has noticed too. He's always asking me why I suddenly stopped attending parties with him and whatnot. Sometimes, Frederick accused me of being too shy. I'm not shy, and it's far from it. I always tell him that, but he never believes me. I know myself, and I know that one reason that I don't do any wild stuff anymore is because I feel like I should act differently since I'm married and that I shouldn't really let myself get out of character. Another reason is because I'm a rebellious child, and I've always been a rebellious child. I've not done any wild things in the past, but my parents always taunt me and tell me that I like to do the opposite of what I'm told. That's why they believe I rebelled against them by marrying Frederick. I kind of just grew out of my rebellious phase and decided to be more calm and put together. I've tried to explain this to my husband several times, but he just doesn't get it. Our discussions about the way I was shy in public always gets me annoyed, and that's because he always takes it too far. If I say he takes it too far, then that's because it's the truth. I have a very big sense of humor, so anything that annoys me is really annoying, Lowell. Frederick suddenly became this guy that's interested in clubs and nights out. He wasn't like that while we dated and for the early years of our marriage. I think the issue is that both of us just turned into the exact opposite of ourselves. I used to think that was a good thing because we helped each other find ourselves, but I guess that's a very bad thing. Frederick began to invite me to clubs that he was invited to. At first, I didn't care about attending any of those clubs, but then I realized that there was every possibility of me getting cheated on if I just let my husband go to nightclubs alone. I wanted to blend in and be the Gen Z wife, so I thought, why not? We don't have children yet, so going to clubs all night wasn't a big deal. But I didn't expect Frederick to actually expect me to participate in the clubbing. My main reason for going was to keep an eye on him and make sure that he wasn't doing anything absurd. I also wanted to support my husband and engage in activities with him because I've been told that's what supportive partners do. That's how I found myself in the absurd situation that's going to cause our marriage now. Explore. That word means a lot more than it should me. Frederick wanted us to explore, and now we're exploring the prospects of getting divorced. Please forgive me, guys, if you find my sense of humor too annoying. I just can't help it. I'm at the verge of getting divorced, and I still can't help but make jokes even as I write this. I have to be fast because my mom has invited me to the house to ask my side of the story. Apparently, Frederick had also visited my parents, and now they want to hear from me first. Thankfully, my dad is not a big fan of Frederick, and he doesn't associate with him a lot, so that means he'll obviously believe me before he even gives Frederick a chance to speak. Now let's get back to what we're saying. So Frederick and I decided to go to the parties together, but he had a problem with me not dancing like the rest of the girls. I told him I'm not ready for that kind of fun yet, and I tried to make him understand that it would not be proper for me to act that way in front of his friends. He never listened to me at all. Frederick owns a restaurant, but he doesn't need to be present every day. Eek his wife, so I don't need to report to work every day. So, we can party all night if we want. And that's what we started doing. I just followed him for a show and I never got involved. Frederick complained at first, but as time went on, he stopped. One of the things I like about him is his ability to listen to me and give up when he notices that I'm not really into something. I always liked that about him, her. Recently, it seems like he's decided to do the exact opposite of what he used to do before. Initially, it was just a joke between us. It was never anything serious, and we always just joked about it. Sometimes the joke gets to me, and I get really frustrated. I mean, I'm a wife, so I obviously get affected when my husband compares to other women. No woman would like that, and even though I act very nonchalant and hardcore, I'm not that nonchalant. I always laughed it off, but began to get to me, and then I started resenting the jokes he made. At some point, I needed to get everything off my chest, so I decided to speak to one of my sisters about it. I have 3 sisters and a stepbrother. My sisters and I are very close, and they are all married. I'm the firstborn girl, but I got married last. I wonder why, Lowell. I'm closer to Nadia, my immediate younger sister, and so I spoke to her about my condition with Frederick. We initially laughed about it because it was a very weird and unlikely situation, but as time went on, I realized that speaking to my sister about it made me realize that I might have been overacting. So, I decided to calm down and just give it a try. I promised myself to make Frederick see my point of view without causing a bridge between us. My sister also advised me not to say no the next time he asked. I also wanted to give Frederick a taste of his medicine by showing him that I'm just respecting him by not engaging his taunts. It was a joke to us, and my sister and I never took it seriously. But I guess not, the situation is extremely serious. 3 weeks ago, my husband got invited to his best friend's bachelor party. My husband decided that it would be nice to invite me too, and I agreed without a single thought. It was 2 days after agreeing that I realized that I might have made the wrong choice. I realized that the bachelor party was something the groom had organized for the guts, but he gave them permission to invite their partners if they wanted. I heard that his reason was because he didn't want any of his friends' wives accusing him of making their husbands do crazy things. In other words, he didn't want to be the cause of anyone's broken marriage. The bride also organized her own bachelor party or bridal shower. Whatever it is called, I don't really know. But I don't really know the bride, and I'm not close to her, so I thought it was best to attend the groom's bachelor party, since he's the one I'm close to. The party was 2 weeks ago, and I got ready for it for days. The party took place at a hotel just a few minutes' drive away from our house, so there was no reason for us to travel anywhere. I heard it was a customer-themed party, so I decided to go as my favorite character in The Queen's Gambit. I had no particular reason for going as a movie character. I just wanted to be different. My husband went as something I'm not really familiar with, and I don't remember who he tried to emulate. Anyway, we got dressed and got ready for the party quite early. I didn't plan on wearing a mask, and I didn't even buy one because I didn't believe that it would look good on my dress. I actually dyed my hair red just because I wanted to get into the character quite well. The only difference was that I didn't curl or try to make it look like any of those royal-themed ones. I just left his street and tied it into a high ponytail. When we arrived at the party, I immediately knew that I had made the wrong decision. Everything was wild, and a lot of things were going on all at once. I couldn't believe that a person that planned to get married the next day was throwing something so controversial. I, for one, was very happy that I didn't let Frederick go alone. It would have really made me quite angry if he came back and showed me the pictures and videos of the wild party he attended alone. To all the girls out there, both single and married or in a relationship, never let your man or future man go to a bachelor's party alone. He needs supervision because the thing that goes on at bachelor parties nowadays, I'm just too chaotic and extra. I'm not in a position to give advice because I am currently going through the consequences of entertaining a bachelor's party. But I guess it is easier to advise other people, don't you think? So let me get back to the main point now. When we attended the party, I realized that there were actually masks there, and it was compulsory for us to wear them. I've seen many such things like that in movies, and I knew it never ended well. I told my husband we shouldn't do it because it would be hard to recognize each other, but he told me it would be disrespectful to the HOs if we refused to follow the protocol. So, he took one of the lighters that we arranged on the table I assumed was dedicated to people interested in smoking, and then he used it to burn the edges of our masks so it would be easier for us to recognize each other. He didn't want to burn mine at first because he stated that it wouldn't be hard to locate me since I was literally the only one wearing the type of fustum I chose. Yes, guys, I ended up being as different as I anticipated I'd be. His was important because the kind of costume he wore was similar to most of the ones that were worn by other people. I knew that even with the burnt masks, I'd still find it hard to locate him. I was worried about that at first, but Frederick assured me that we wouldn't even need to look for each other, because we would be standing together all through. That calmed me down a little, and then I decided to relax and just have fun, even though I was completely sure that partying in the midst of sweaty people was not my thing. 7% of the people in attendance at that bachelor party were men, and that spooked me out at the beginning. Even though the groom told his married male friends to bring their partners to the party, it was still male-dominated because some of them didn't care to invite their partners or not. Many of his friends were married. I don't know which one it was, but I just know that I saw more men with short, low-cut hair than I saw women with their long hair. Or maybe I just couldn't tell their genders because everyone was wearing a mask and costume. I don't really know. I held on tight to Frederick at first, but I later let go of him and let him interact with his friends. He took off his mask to interact with his friends, but I kept kind on. I actually started having fun at the party, and it was very shocking to me. I didn't even have to dance or interact to have fun. I just sat and watched how crazy people can be. Most times my mouth was left open because of how much weird stuff I saw. I didn't even care that I was one of the very few people that just sat down and observed everything. I didn't have a problem with that because I was just fine observing. It was even better that I could not see their faces and they could not see that I was staring. I still remember everything and the loud music that almost made me deaf. I had fun at the beginning and I can't deny it. Well, only at the beginning because the party didn't even go well for me at all. At some point into the party, the groom grabbed a I didn't even know was there and made an announcement. He said there was going to be a game of truth or dare at the party, and he needed volunteers. Let me just tell you guys that while the groom was making the announcement, I just sat down and munched on the snacks I was served and sipped on my drink, even though I didn't even know what was mixed inside. I didn't even think of being a participant, and it never crossed my mind that I would need to participate in something like that. I was initially just excited to watch what everyone would do, and I was racking my brain to think of the possible games he would make people play. That's why I actually got surprised when Frederick came to my side and asked me to go volunteer and play the truth or dare game. I knew it was Frederick because I had to remove his mask and do a double take even after I saw the burnt edges on the mask. I actually asked him if he was crazy because I knew that I was not going to do what he was asking me to do. I'd not heard of any husband that would give his wife permission to volunteer for a truth or dare game when he knew what kind of stuff went on in such games. Frederick actually told me he was serious and that he really wanted me to participate in the game. I boldly told him no because it was not something I was interested in at all. He pulled me to the side and decided to taunt me. He asked me if it was wrong for him as a man to want his woman to do something crazy. He started pointing to the wives of his friends and how some of them were already standing with the groom and volunteering to play the game. I told him I was different and that I would never play a truth or dare game with strangers. He didn't budge or try to change his words. He decided to date me to go volunteer, or else he'd know that I was trying to chicken out and that I was just looking for an excuse to get on his nerves. Well, after hearing that from my own husband, I didn't think twice before deciding to give him a taste of his medicine. I remembered the discussion I had with my sisters and how she always encouraged me never to give him a reason to compare me with other women. I didn't want to do it, but just because I was tired of constantly getting compared and taunted, I decided to do it. I also wanted to show him that just because I refused to do certain things and respect his name didn't mean that I was a fool. I asked him to give me $200 before going in $300 when I finished. It was my only condition for getting into the game. He agreed, but made sure he told me just how much he didn't believe that I'd actually play the game. I left him standing alone and went to join the people that were volunteering to play the game. My husband kept giving me thumbs up even before the hand started, but I didn't even care to answer him. I was very angry, and I am still angry. It just made very little sense to me that he wasn't even appreciating the fact that I wanted to be faithful to him and not try to disrespect him or cross boundaries. Any man in his shoes would have been very happy to have a wife whose character and morals didn't contradict with the boundaries that a marriage was supposed to have. He didn't know that I could be extra if I wanted to and that I just didn't want to. At that point, I already had everything to the extreme and I was not ready to have more of it. All I wanted to do was just put an end to his unnecessary comparisons and baits. A part of me also wanted to teach him a big lesson, and now that I've seen what my actions are making him do, I'm quite certain that I really did teach him a very big lesson. The game had been open to both the men and the women, and everyone had been open to play the game. But for some reason, the men dominated the game, and my guess was because the men's population had outdid the one of the women. We were 15 in total that volunteered to play the game, and we were divided into 5 groups with 3 people in each team. My team had 2 men, and I was the only woman. I'm the team. I'd never seen such a truth or dare game where the players were divided into teams, but that was the first time I saw something like that. We all had our masks on as required by the host. At first, everyone just chose the truth because they were scared of being given a very controversial game to play. But the rules were changed and dare was very compulsory. At first, my team members were kind enough to play the game for me and take drinks on my behalf, but it was soon my turn, and I could not hide any longer. I was dared to kiss one of the men in another team. It wasn't just any type of kids. It was meant to be a French kiss, and there was no getting out of it. Since my team members had helped me most of the game, I had to do it. I had the choice of taking a drink, but I refused. I didn't want to take a drink because at that moment, I was extremely angry at Frederick. I just hated everything he did to me, and I decided to kiss the guy in front of me. Yes, I did what I did. I gave him a French kiss, and that was it. I didn't even give it a second thought because I wanted to let loose, like you told me to let loose. He has been disturbing me so much, and that was why I decided to give him a taste of his medicine. After I did what I did, I looked up, and I saw my husband without his mask. He was very angry as he looked at me, and I could tell that he had been furious that I did not refuse the dare. His friend was even talking to him, but he didn't bother to answer his friend. He just walked out of the party furiously. I didn't even try to run after him. I just removed my mask and rolled my eyes. His friends recognized me as his wife, and they were also surprised that I had taken the dare. Some of them could not even hide the shock on their faces. I don't know, got to explain that feeling to you guys because it was just a lot. I didn't have to run after Frederick to know that he had been angry after what I did. I knew that he was very furious with my actions and he wanted to react by just walking out. I felt very victorious because I gave him the taste of the medicine he had been giving me. How could a person be as stupid as Frederick was? What did he think I would do when he kept daring me to go and play a game of truth or dare? Did he expect me to just stand and watch him trample all over me? Who bites their wife and then expects them to be as innocent as a clear water? Well, guys, I didn't give him that opportunity and I did what I did. Do I regret it? No. I don't regret it because if I was the one telling my husband to go play a game of truth or dare, society will accuse me of asking him to cheat on me. I kissed a stranger and I did so with my head up high. I left the party only after it ended. I stayed back and had enough drinks and food. If I kept being asked to let loose, it was only time till I actually let loose. His friends kept walking up to me and asking where he was. I don't think there's anyone there who didn't know about what happened between me and Frederick that night. The fact that he was no longer in the room after I kissed a guy just explained everything that happened between us. They kept meeting me and urging me to go look for him. I didn't bother looking for him because it did not make sense that he suddenly chickened out after dating me not to chicken out. There are many parties I'd wanted to walk out on, but I refused just because I accompanied him. But he wanted to take things extra, and I complied. I later discovered that Frederick left in his car about an hour before I left the party. One of his friends offered to drop me off, but I refused and just took a cab. When I got to the house, I came to the house. I came home to trouble, literally. Frederick just started arguing immediately. I dropped key purse on the table. He asked me in his exact words, "How dare you kiss another guy while I was in the room? How dare you even kiss another guy?" Of course, I didn't keep quiet and just look at him like they do. I'm those daily soaps. I spoke up for myself and told him how he literally frustrated me and led to do what I did. The action was done by me, but everything that led to it was my husband's fault, and I told him that straight to his face. He accused me of cheating on him and disrespecting him in his friends present, and he told me that I had been looking for an excuse to cheat on him. I asked him what he was really expecting when he baited me to go play a truth or dare game at a bachelor's party with adults. I had to ask him if he expected me to go there and play Cinderella. Frederick kept looking for excuses that question my character and paint me out as a bad person, but I refused. Frederick told me he was just not ready to accept my reasons for kissing another guy in his presence, and I told him that I was not ready to accept his reasons for baiting his wife to a truth or dare game. I didn't apologize because I didn't think that he deserved one, and that seemed to only trample on his ego more. I could tell that he hated my attitude and the way I refused to accept I was wrong. He wanted an apology, and I just promised myself that I was never going to give him one. So Frederick grabbed a pillow and a blanket, and then he threw them out for me and locked himself in the bedroom so I couldn't come out. I mean, how messed up is that? He's the one that didn't want to sleep in the same room with me. Why did he have to pick me out like that? Wasn't he supposed to be the one that left the room? I decided to just forget about it and sleep in the guest room. The next morning, I discovered that Frederick left the house before I even woke up, and for the past 2 weeks, he's left the house before I woke up and came back when I slept. I just realized that he's been visiting anyone that cares to listen, and he's been trying to trample on my character and make me give in. I've gotten calls from some of my sisters and even my stepbrother. I mean, I don't get why he's telling them instead of telling me. If I've offended you too much, have a conversation with me. Stop trying to recruit people so that they can follow you and try paint me as the one who's wrong. I've gotten calls from his mother and siblings, and I know his mother is finally happy that the wrong girl her son married is finally showing her true colors. I heard that's what she's been saying around the house. I got so frustrated that I started writing this because I just needed to tell people. Frederick is frustrating me. It's actually annoying. It got worse today when I got a call from my parents. Both of them, especially my mother, have asked to see me, and I was supposed to be there yesterday, but I decided to go today. Now, I got carried away writing this, and I've noticed that time is not on my side anymore. I'll have to cancel and go tomorrow. Update. Well, my life gets more complicated, I guess. So, I spoke to my parents, and they told your husband visited them and told them I kissed another man. My father asked me if it was true, and I said yes. He asked me why I disrespected my husband, and I just told him that it was a truth or dare game, and Frederick dared me to play it. I didn't tell him the full story because I was aware that my father was looking for an opportunity to tell me how right he was about me marrying Frederick. My mother called me to the side and asked me what I planned on doing. I just told her I'd not let things get out of hand. I went back home, and thankfully I found my husband there. I told him that we needed him. We should stop letting such things get. I'm the way of our marriage. I apologized for kissing another guy in his presence, and then I told him why I did what I did. It was Frederick's turn to speak up. He didn't apologize or take accountability for pushing me to the point I'd ended up in. Not once in his long speech did he take responsibility for taunting me and baiting me to attend parties and cobes when he was aware that I preferred not to. He didn't accept the fact that he was wrong for forcing me to participate too. And that was all I needed to know, that I had married a conceited and egoistic man, and I was not ready to go down that lane. Instead of trying to work things out, he told me he wanted to get a divorce because he was not ready to accept what I did. My husband just dumped me right in front of me, and then he went upstairs to his room and brought out divorce papers. Initially, I wanted to talk him out of it, but when I realized that he had the divorce papers ready for a while, and he refused to tell me and just waited to get an apology like he was entitled to it, I decided that it was in my favor to dump the fool. I never expected something like that to lead to a divorce. It's literally not that deep, lol. I should be angry too, but I never tried to raise my voice and paint him as the bad guy. I always respected him, yet he kept on pushing me to the wall. I signed the divorce papers and tossed it on the table. He already signed it, so all he needed to do was go give them to his lawyer. I asked him for the $300 I was supposed to have for taking the bait, but he refused and called me greedy. Well, I didn't care and still don't care. If he wants to be petty and divorce me for something that was both our faults, I'd be petty all I want. I told him to keep it anyway, and that I'd get it from the spousal support. During our divorce proceedings, his lawyer offered the house in turn for the spousal support, but I refused. I don't need his house. My father's house is not closed to me. I did get the spousal support, and I didn't settle for less. He wanted a divorce, and I gave him one. I didn't ask for the divorce, he did, and his reason is just stupid. I got fired from the restaurant instantly, but I don't care. Ego, what's to work for their ex anyway? My father hasn't kissed a chance to tell me just how right he was. In fact, I think he prayed for this lull. My mom is the one who didn't like the idea of her firstborn girl being the first to get divorced. According to her, she wished I'll get the first and last to get divorced and that it never happens again. I pray too, and I hope I don't marry another Frederick redesigned. To all the guys out there, don't bait your wife to a truth or dare game if you don't want her to do something that could potentially disrespect you. It's common sense. Did I learn my lesson? Yes, I did. I should have refused to take the bait. That's where I was wrong. I should have just asked for a divorce because any man that puts unnecessary pressure and comparison on his wife is no man at all. The same goes for women. Well, I'm back to working for my father, so the sack letter Frederick delivered to me doesn't change a thing. By the way, Frederick, if you ever get to see this, just know that you are the biggest mistake I ever made. Period.